Hi everyone, I'm John Rennie and welcome to The Boneyard. Are there any fans of documentaries, demonic possession, and exorcism cases out there in the Boneyard? Because if there are, this underseen, spine-chilling documentary on the dark spiritual side of the world might just be for you. When Hostage to the Devil was released in 2016, to me, it felt like more than just a documentary. It was an eerie window into the unknown darkness where belief, skepticism, and horror all meet. The film explores the life and work of Farther Malachi Martin, a former Jesuit priest, and the controversial work he did, including practicing exorcisms to help people who claimed demonic possession. The movie is inspired by Martin's 1976 book, Hostage to the Devil, and the documentary walks a tightrope between historical biography and the supernatural elements of the story, but its reception was as enigmatic as the subject matter is itself.
Exorcism itself and possession is not a joy. Possession is a dirty, insalubrious, unhealthy, mucky, and unpleasant situation when you come across it. But
the production of Hostage to the Devil was fraught with tension and skepticism. Director Marty Stalker sought to bring the story of Farther Malachi Martin and the reality of exorcism to a broader audience, blending interviews with archival footage and dramatic recreations.
5 years ago, before we even started preparation for the film, we were told by the Jesuits in Dublin that we would not be allowed to make this film. Very, very controversial figure. It's a story about him, but also addressing the old age question of does the devil exist?
The film's mood is heavy, drenched in ominous shadows, and punctuated by expert testimonies from exorcists, theologians, and psychologists. But the ominous, slow-building tension seemed to me to serve a deeper purpose. And I think that was to ignite the same kind of debate that surrounded Father Martin's original book. The book is a little hard to find these days, but if the spiritual side of horror and exorcisms are of interest to you, I definitely recommend that you pay the price and see if you can find a copy. The controversy surrounding the film version largely stemmed from the same source as the controversy surrounding Father Martin himself. Martin had long been a polarizing figure in religious and academic circles.
Shortly after we began the edit, in fact, we got word from the Jesuit order in Ireland that they did not deem Malachi Martin to be a Jesuit priest after 1965. Fascinating to know that even now, many years after his death, the controversy and the mystery still continues.
A former Vatican insider who left the Jesuits in 1964, Martin became one of the loudest voices warning about the dangers of Satanism infiltrating the Catholic Church. Many of his claims, including to be of those of high-ranking clergy engaging in occult practices, were dismissed by critics as exaggerations or pure fantasy. As a result, when Hostage to the Devil hit streaming services, it came with a wave of backlash from both secular and religious audiences alike.
I didn't want to think that he was having an affair with my wife, and therefore, for a good long time, I was in denial. So, he was just a liar and a scoundrel and a cheat.
Critics of the documentary felt it leaned too heavily on the sensational and relied on supernatural claims without enough critical examination. They argued that the film was designed more for entertainment and perpetuating fear of the unknown rather than giving a balanced perspective on Martin's life and work. Some former associates of Father Martin accused the documentary of distorting his legacy, focusing on exorcism and possession rather than the intellectual and theological depth that he brought to these matters in his life and work. But for others, the documentary's suspenseful, wonderful use of cinematic storytelling gave Martin's work the broader platform that it deserved. And that is the camp that I fall into. This documentary, whether an exaggeration of Martin's legacy or the truth, tells a demonic tale of possessions, death, love affairs, and infamy that is worthy of any horror film fan's time. And if you are a believer in the spiritual world, this documentary will only strengthen your beliefs. Either way, it is a terrifying look into the unknown darkness that rests in the crevices of this world.
we see that Christ, he was the first exorcist. He has many encounters with persons that were possessed by the devil, and he was able to cast out demons.
Father Malachi Martin had long argued that evil forces were at work in the modern world, particularly in institutions like the Catholic Church. And the documentary rekindled interest in his dark warnings, whether believed or not. At the heart of this debate, I think, lies a key question, and how does Hostage to the Devil, the documentary, differ from Father Malachi Martin's original book? The 1976 book, Hostage to the Devil, is a deep dive into 5 real-life cases of demonic possession that Father Martin claims to have encountered throughout his work and career. The tone is methodical, I would say, chilling, and heavy with theological weight. Martin draws on his academic background, writing in a scholarly manner that demands readers to take the subject of possession very seriously. He painstakingly details the exorcism rituals, the lives of the possessed, and his spiritual battle against demons at work in this world.
It cost me a lot. It cost me 2 broken legs and almost broken kneecaps, and it endangered my life several times.
For Martin, possession wasn't just a psychological phenomenon, it was proof of Satan's tangible influence on humanity. The documentary, on the other hand, takes a more accessible and dramatic approach, which is understandable. While it echoes some of the book's themes and references Martin's personal involvement in exorcisms, it is more concerned with Martin himself as a figure of intrigue. Stalker's film often feels like a biography of a man that is haunted by his own spiritual convictions, giving equal weight to Martin's paranoia about Satanism and his exile from the church as it does to the actual content of the book. It's less about the meticulous cases described in the text and more about exploring the broader implications of what Martin's warnings might mean for modern audiences. There are sharp tonal differences between the 2 works as well. Martin's book is clinical, theological, and deeply unsettling in its detail. It reads like a series of case studies challenging the reader's belief systems. The documentary, however, plays more with visual fear and suspense, using darkness and atmosphere really well to heighten the horror elements. And I have to tell you, there were moments when I first watched this documentary that gave me chills. And for me, that means the filmmakers, as well as delivering a compelling story of real exorcists and the battle between good and evil, also made a great cinematic film that scared me with its use of music and atmosphere. And that, to me, is a sign of a pretty great movie. The film also seems genuine and gives fair description of Martin's life from both his colleagues, friends, but also skeptics. The testimonies from experts and witnesses such as demonologist Ralph Sarchi,
Open your eyes, find God, and you'll see.
who would have a fiction film based on his own story a few years later, directed by Scott Derrikson, the chilling demonic film Deliver Us from Evil, starring Eric Bana. I think it was released in 2014.
Mommy.
But the interview with Sarchi feels designed to raise more questions than provide answers, and I think that evokes a style of haunting ambiguity that allows the viewers to make up their own conclusions, and for me that is another sign of a great true crime or a supernatural documentary. This leads to a crucial difference. While the book is primarily about exorcism and possession from a Catholic perspective, the documentary tries to straddle both belief and skepticism, often leaning towards the mystical side of things. Either way, this for me makes a compelling documentary that the Boneyard most certainly recommends.
Beelzebub cast out devils, by whom do your children cast out? Therefore they shall be your judges.
I will say on the flip side that on its release, some viewers felt the film was too sensationalized, using Father Martin's reputation as a launching pad to explore larger, more abstract fears about evil, rather than staying true to the specific stories that he documented in his book. There is also archival footage in the film of Father Martin sitting on a panel alongside the Conjuring universe's stars, Ed and Lorraine Warren, the real-life demonologists. This footage is compelling to say the very least, and now, because of the fame reached by these demonologists in today's horror film franchises, the documentary is worth a watch, just for this footage alone.
Some bit of you dies with every exorcism, and with everything she does. Some bit of her is consumed and goes away. I don't know where it goes. Well, God stores it up for you, for you finally reimagine it. You lose, and finally you're used up. You're used up.
But ultimately, I would say Hostage to the Devil stirs up the same blend of fascination and unease that Father Malachi Martin's life and work have always evoked. The film's production, like Martin's life, was marked by controversy and conflict between belief and doubt, between the sacred and I guess the profane. Whilst the documentary may not have delved as deeply into the theological and intellectual rigor that Father Martin's book brought with it, it succeeded in reigniting interest in the story that is the timeless battle between good and evil.
I remember her face kind of framed in the window, and she just blew him a kiss. It was disgusting, it was lascivious, it was like something was defiling innocence at that moment.
My personal love for this documentary may come not just from its haunting narrative, but from the way it captures a particular moment in modern horror. A moment when the paranormal is met with both belief and undeniable curiosity, much like Father Malachi Martin's warnings decades before. If you are a fan of horror, and indeed have any interest in the spiritual world and the battle between good and evil, this documentary is a must-see. It will inform you, ask you to decide for yourself based on the evidence presented if the story is indeed true, but most of all for me, it is a terrifying work that scared me enough that it left a lasting impression on me, enough so that I wanted to share it with all you horror fans out there in the boneyard. Take my word for it, if you are a fan of horror or just curious about the dark side of the spiritual world, give this movie a watch, and I promise you'll be sleeping with the lights on.
The real horror, the real pain, what hurts in possession is the presence of the evil one. Suddenly, it becomes evidence, palpably evident, like an invisible animal clawing at you with claws you can't escape.
Thanks for watching. If you would like to hear more from me about spine-tingling true life stories of the supernatural and other film reviews, please remember to like and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on this captivating and I would say chilling documentary in the comments below. And as always, thank you all so much for listening.